Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spot Connection with the weekly comic book roundup. We've already covered this week's X-Men books, as well as a couple of the less, as well as the new, as well as technically last week's issues of Champions and Guardians of the Galaxy. So now we move on to last week's Avengers titles. Yes, last week's because I couldn't get my books because of the weather, and also the shop that I frequent has not yet received this week's diamond shipment, so my options were pretty limited. Kicking things off, we've got Black Widow, number 5. And take in that cover for a moment, shall we? That is a friggin' awesome looking cover. Where we left off, Black Widow had been kidnapped by an assembled group of her enemies. Who had hired Arcade to basically put her in a scenario where, basically get her out of the way. She was an architectural consultant in San Francisco. She had a loving, fiance. She had a child. And then one of the members of the group of her enemies decided, you know what? Let's go after her again. Because, that always works out well, right? So, this unlocked her memories of who she actually was. Led to a standoff. Also, trying to figure out what was going on were Hawkeye, Winter Soldier, and Yelena Belova. But and so those three rescued Black Widow as well as her family. Went to a safe house. However, the safe house was soon thereafter attacked, and Black Widow's fiance and infant son were killed. Or were seemingly killed, at least, in the explosion. So we pick up with Widow remembering a trip to the zoo with her fiance and their son. And then cuts back to the present where, and basically, Yelena has to slap her to get her to come out of it. And tells her, there will be time for grief later, but now is not the time. And so, Yelena, Widow, Hawkeye, and Winter Soldier head on out. And so, the various villains are now moving in to base. Since one of them forced their hand, they're moving in to take out Black Widow and her allies. However, they can't seem to put eyes on Winter Soldier. Viper is rather distressed about this, figuring that if Winter Soldier's if they can't see Winter Soldier, then they are definitely screwed. The building, the warehouse that everyone's in is power killed through Arcade. Red Guardian and Snapdragon are sent in as they enter the warehouse. Snapdragon says Red Guardian. It feels kind of like they're trying to spring a trap on Black Widow, but in doing so, they're walking more into her trap. Hawkeye lets loose an explosive arrow which floors both Snapdragon and Red Guardian. Then puts an arrow through Weeping Lion's scope and his eye. Widow and Snapdragon fight. Snapdragon takes a bullet to the knee. Widow is actually kind of surprised to see Red Guardian among them. And he explains, and while Yelena takes on the Hydra forces, Red Guardian explains that while he was never a part of them, part of their group, as they approached him, rather than the other way around, and he knew that they would proceed with or without him, and also that being involved would probably be the best way to protect her from as much of this as possible, and he had no idea the lengths to which they would go, and he apologizes to her. She actually states that she believes him, but it doesn't mean that things between them are over. She tells him to leave before she changes her mind, and to know that they will speak again soon. After Red Guardian leaves, Yelena, Black Widow, and Hawkeye take care of the Hydra forces within that are assembled, making short work of them before the three of them, before Widow and Yelena escape, and Hawkeye blows the building. Yelena expresses her condolences to Natasha as they leave. Clint and Natasha have a bit of a moment. As Natasha doesn't know, something's bugging Clint. And he says that, it kind of hurt his feelings that he wasn't a part of her perfect life. And she kind of gives him a look like, what do you mean? And he mentions, fiance's name is James, baby's name is Stevie. The cat was named Logan. And Natasha does explain, she didn't name them. The people that did this to her did. But she does appreciate the sentiment. And he offers to comfort her, and even saying he can be quiet if that's what she needs, and she tells him that he can't, and he agrees that no, he can't. But she also says that's one of the many reasons why she'll always love him. But right now she needs to be alone. At another safe house, she's crashed out on a couch when the Winter Soldier arrives, simply saying they're safe. She tells him not to tell, not even hint that where they are, and he knows. But yeah, it's basically explained that Bucky got James and Stevie out and got them to safety. But Natasha explains that Bucky was the only one she could trust to do it. And she assumes he's angry with her for asking, and that he worries what it means for the two of them. And he clearly isn't angry that she asked him to do what he did, but he does agree that he does worry what this means for the two of them. As he does cling to the hope that maybe someday the two of them could be something, and she does too. And they both kind of agree that and she kind of says that now he's afraid that they'll always be between them. And she kind of says that's true, But she says, they didn't give him the name James by accident. They knew it would help her feel more at home with them. Now she doesn't know. Maybe someday she'll feel differently about them, about everything. But right now, all she can see is Jane and Stevie, and that she's lost them forever. Adding that in some twisted way, Bucky's the one who took them from her, even though she demanded it of him. She says, all she can feel are their deaths, but, Bucky corrects her, like, they're not dead. But she says that for them, for her, they are. There's an ache inside her she's never felt before. And all the things she's been through, the highs and the lows, peaks of joy, depths of sorrow, all the pain and regret, nothing has felt as empty as this particular ache. It's like an endless hole, and she can't imagine how something so dark and endless and empty could ever be filled. And he simply tells her that she has to allow herself time to mourn. But she kind of sort of agrees, and but she also admits that's never really been her strong suit. She's always moving like a shark. And she kind of just collapses into Bucky's arms, and I'm guessing she basically just kind of collapses and just cries and just cries about what happened. Later, Natasha goes back to that house, though. There's one, hoping there's still one thing that's left. Logan, the cat. And so she takes Logan out of there, and we learn that Jane and Stevie are somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. But apparently she's going to stay in San Francisco. So weeks later, Yelena and Natasha meet up, and she basically goes through what's happened to everyone. The new Weeping Lion lost his eye, but is alive. Snapdragon and Viper survived the explosion. Arcade, however, left before everything began. Yelena offers to help Natasha, but Natasha says she's on revenge. It's endless circle, a snake eating itself. Who would it benefit? Though Yelena says it's a risk to not strike back. Others may think they can do the same to you again. But Natasha counters that those involved, they're marked and they know it. They'll be they'll be keeping an eye on every door they ever see for the rest of their lives. And so Yelena asks, if not revenge, what then? And she says something different. Something she'll be proud of. Something Jane and Stevie would be proud of. She tells Yelena that Yelena can come along if she likes. After all, Natasha could use the help and the company. And Yelena agrees to that. Well, that's where the issue ends. Though not where the series ends, as there will be a 6th issue coming in about a month. Moving on to Captain America number 27. Where we left off, Cap had rescued the still very much alive Thunderbolt Ross. They had managed to save Peggy Carter. Basically, everything was seemingly nicely wrapped up. Alexander Lucan was back, and with him came the essence of the Red Skull. Could have been in him when he died, courtesy of the Cosmic Cube. But the issue begins with Cap giving a speech. He's been exonerated for the death of Donald Ross. We see various people watching this, including Ross, Peggy, Bucky, and Black Widow. I think we got Falcon watching, as well as Thor, Black Panther, and She-Hulk, and also, well, later watching it, Sin and Alexander Lukin. Sin is a bit doesn't like the fact that Lukin acts as familiar with her as he does. He's not her father. But he points out, he does ask, if I'm not your father. If not, then why are you here? Then he says, when she doesn't answer, he simply says, don't feel bad, we all need guidance from time to time. There's nothing to be ashamed of. It's nothing at all. Even as he finds guidance in Captain America. As their years of entanglement have taught him much. And she says, she asks what he's learned, how to be a star-spangled doofus. Though he agrees that Cap is kind of ridiculous. But there really is an undeniable power in it all. The stars, the stripes, the dream he speaks of. It inspires, makes the Americans believe. Because there is real power in dreams. So she asks, what does he do with that power? And he states, nothing. Captain America is a man of empty symbols. A man of no vision. As he puts on his Red Skull mask, he says that he, on the other hand, he has all sorts of ideas. After his press conference, Cap and Sharon Carter driving through, and Cap's listening to an AM radio station that's critical of him. And apparently they set up a rally, an anti-Captain America rally in Central Park. But Sharon turns it off, and they have a bit of an argument about why he's listening to it. He says, how can we Captain America? I'm not listening to Americans, all Americans, and he says he can't just seal himself in a bubble. But she says it's not about Cap, it's about Steve Rogers. And she tells him she wants him to stop punishing himself. But they decide they are going to go to the rally. In part because Sharon thinks she has a lead on Lukens. But Cap has an image induce her up. Tactical readout basically is described as being a fascist family reunion. You've got people with the American flag painted on their face, much like flawed Super Soldier Nuke. Got Red Skulls, Watchdogs, the Friends of Humanity are present, longtime X-Men foes, and a group called the Sons of Selene. But we get more with Lucan and Sin. He once again calls her his daughter, but she tries to deny this, but he interrupts her, adding that But more importantly, she is his heir. And as such, it's necessary that she does not repeat certain errors that he has made, certain mistakes. He being Red Skull, not Lucan. But she says, the Red Skull doesn't make mistakes. The Red Skull, and then she tells him, she cuts him off again, or he cuts her off again and says, I'm a man. I'm a man, and mistakes are how men learn. And it was a mistake to ever let her think that he was more than a man. So she brings up the mask, and he explains that the mask is not the man. The mask must ever be a tool. Once he used the mask, he allowed the tool to use him, to dictate to him. So he said, but she doesn't entirely get it. So he says, maybe you need a more concrete example. So he brings up time he tried to augment the hate that men felt and turn it against his enemies. And it failed, so he tried again, and failed again, because he was blinded by his own hate, and thus he misunderstood hate itself. Because hate is natural. It's part of what makes us who we are. While he's saying this, we also see some of the watchdogs setting an explosive device elsewhere. So something so human need not be implanted. It need not be augmented. Only to be harnessed, for it is a tool, a device. At the rally, things heat up a little bit with one of the Red Skulls taking a swing at some. And basically, things devolving into a brawl. Sin and Lucan are watching this, and Lucan asks what Sin sees, and if she sees what good things can happen when you let them, and she says, all I see is cat busting heads. And Lucan says that's why he's a captain and not a general. He fights, but he does not understand the terrain. He fights, but he does not understand his enemy. During the fight, Sharon notes that she actually finally gets Spider-Man because the strength level in the suit is something to get used to. She's having to keep things light to avoid killing people. She asks what the plan is, and Cap simply tells her to hold until reinforcements arrive, which is when the NYPD shows up. They start arresting some of the attendees at the rally. But Lucan mentions to his daughter about talk to his daughter about how IEDs came to be, explaining that the defenders of Iraq and Afghanistan found themselves short on manpower and weaponry, so they needed new tools, new devices. And the improvised explosives, that was the first step, but the next was to use those tools use IEDs in concert. The first device was merely a lure to attract would-be saviors, while the second made the streets run red. He says as the explosive he's set goes off near the rally. And then Red Skull puts out a video. Basically blaming Captain America for what happened. And he ends up asking, how long will Americans tolerate the heresies of Cap, his mockery of law and order, his disrespect of your found creeds? Finishing with, how long will you tolerate this captain of nothing? And that is where the issue ends. Which brings us to our next book of the week, Iron Fist, Heart of the Dragon, number 2. Where we left off, The seven cities of heaven were under assault by an unknown enemy, and Iron Fist was doing what he could to defend them. He was told he needed to go to the city of heaven itself to figure out what to do. First off, we learn of the eighth city, the hidden and its entrance, and someone approaches it. That's someone being none other than Taskmaster. Taskmaster explains that he brings the heart of the Undercity Dragon, and he pours a bucket of blood over himself and then hands it over the heart. He then explains that Danny Rand is the heart of heaven, and he knows. However, Taskmaster is told that Iron Fist will. That Taskmaster is informed that his employers are prepared, and Iron Fist will fall. The dragon is no longer hidden. In the heart of heaven, Danny, Luke Cage, Pei, and Fu arrive, but only Iron Fist can enter, and so. He does, and meets with Quan Yi, who tells him that he must save the dragons. He must save the dragons, for if you fail, all under heaven is lost. The hearts of the dragons of heaven are the secrets of the powers of the cities. However, the hidden cities emerge, and to consolidate its own power, it must negate the power of all the other dragons. So when all of them are under attack, all the cities are under attack. Some of the champions are already dead. There is no way that the surviving champions, even led by Iron Fist, can save the heavenly cities from the hidden city. The portals are insufficient. With Fu's technology, they must manifest all the heavenly cities so that they can cross into the earth where the heroes can join the fray. Or where the heroes there can join the fray. Though Iron Fist does kind of point out that heroes are very different on Earth. They aren't of a single mind, and nor all so pure of heart. But Quan Yi tells them that it is all or nothing. They must understand this. The hidden city and its grim citadel will also manifest on Earth. It falls upon Iron Fist to marshal the heroes of the seven cities and the heroes of Earth. He must not allow the gates of the hidden city citadel to open, or the great balance be overturned. As the immortal Iron Fist, that is his mandate, duty, and destiny. And so, Iron Fist tells everyone what he's learned. Telling Fu that he must build a giant portal to manifest the cities on Earth. However, Fu explains that Iron Fist misheard Quan Yin, for the machine is already built. It only needs to be activated. Turns out he's been building it, it's, as he calls it, kind of a rainy day project of sorts. They get finished, it gets turned on. And Dog Brother, Fat Cobra, and Bride of Nine Spiders all appear. However, an eighth portal begins to open. And the Bao Fu Citadel is shown. So Iron Fist and his allies go through and find everything deserted. But they realize, Iron Fist points out that, we will likely won't have to look too hard for them, for they're more likely to find us. The forces of the hidden city are seemingly led by Midnight Sun, who apparently Luke Cage has had dealings with. Near the Wakandan border, one of the cities has suddenly appeared. Okoye tells the Black Panther of this. Turns out it's the hidden city that has appeared near Wakanda. The barred gate to the Citadel is the bars stop keeping the door to the Citadel closed or knocked down, but and the door begins to be opened. However, Iron Fist does slam it shut, saying "not yet," and that is where the issue ends. Which brings us to Iron Man number 6. Where we left off, Iron Man had assembled a team of allies to help him with his Korvac problem. Korvac's plan had been revealed to travel to Galactus' world ship, Ta-2, in the hopes of attaining godhood. Also, Korvac thoroughly stomped Iron Man and Hellcat's asses. Again. So the issue begins. It seems Hellcat is definitely having trouble with what's been going on. It's been affecting her mental state. But she finds Tony, puts him in a laundry cart and gets him into a cab. And they're about to... She's trying to convince him to go to a hospital, but he explains that his neck's broken, his arm was holding together, he needs a technician like Halcyon, rather than a hospital. Speaking of Halcyon, apparently... Iron Man's team of C-listers, B and C-listers, was not blown up after all, but rather protected by a force field from Gargoyle, who lost one of his wings and since he used his own biomystical energy, which he draws from his life force, that mixed with the explosion means they gotta get him some help. Meanwhile, Korvac and his followers are getting ready to head to Ta-2 when another one of his followers arrives, Guardsman. However, while Guardsman is speaking with Korvac, Korvac's prisoner, James War Machine Rhodes, manages to get free. However, and while Korvac does try to stop him, War Machine does overpower the control discs. Guardsman is sent after him. Meanwhile, Halcyon basically makes sure that Tony's armor will keep him alive for the moment. You're not sure how long it will take Gargoyle to recover, but he explains that if Gargoyle's not ready to go in 2 hours, well, that's that. You know, we can't take him if that's to be the case. Once again, Korvac is in Hellcat's head, trying to convince her to side with him. And he's a little more convincing. So she's at least curious. You know, what if Korvac can bring about a peaceful world, beautiful, peaceful world? But Tony reassures that he's wrong, and it wouldn't be beautiful or peaceful. And that Korvac can't create a perfect universe. He then adds he could probably create a better universe than Korvac. As they're about getting ready to leave, War Machine shows up, however, saying no one's leaving the Earth. And basically saying he's going to get everyone to ride against Korvac, and hey, you guys did good, but you need to call it a day. Tony and Rhodey fight over everything. When Guardsman shows up, and Tony manages to take Guardsman down with a single punch, and basically says, "Okay, Rhodey, fine. You're coming. You're part of the crew now too. We need a pilot after all." But Tony says, "You're not going to stop me." Rhodey says, "Hey, others are going to handle this. Okay, don't worry about it." But Tony's like, "I'm going to do this whether I'm going to do this one way or the other. So you're either with me or not." And so Rhodey kind of basically says, "Man, keep yourself, help you from getting yourself killed." But yeah, that's where the issue ends. Which brings us to our next book of the week, Spider-Woman, number 9. Where we left off, during King in Black, during Null's invasion, Spider-Woman was helping with some of the current and former Avengers with dealing with the invasion. However, she basically she got worse. She's her current issues got a little worse, and to the point where Miss Marvel, or Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, formerly of Miss Marvel, decided the best thing to do was put her in a Hulk tank. When Octavia Vermis, Spider-Woman's new arch nemesis, I guess, shows up and says, "Hey, I've got some of your serum, and yeah, but I need your help. I'll let you out. Give you your serum." And so she did. And they got a few things that Octavia needed for her experiments and went to a volcano lair where Octavia's daughter was waiting, along with the owner of the hidden volcano lair, the High Evolutionary, and a whole slew of clones of Spider-Woman's mother. The last one that Jessica encountered tried to kill her. So the issue begins with Spider-Woman having a nightmare where clones of her mother are trying to kill her. She wakes up as one of her mother's clones shows up and to inform her that her friends are awaiting her. Turns out that's all the clones are saying, and so she meets back up with the Vermices. But yeah, Octavia and her daughter are practicing their swordplay. And the younger Vermis is distracted, so her mother does cut her arm, and well, yeah. We get a little bit of Octavia's history as well as her daughter's history. More Hydra experimentation. Deal made with High Evolutionary. And it's the confirmation. Yes, Hydra did murder her mother, but apparently, and the High Evolutionary admits that he kind of screwed up with the clones a little bit, but he wanted to make sure that he fulfilled the goal of Miriam Drew of finding a cure for Jessica and as well as Miriam's grandchildren. Something to restore her abilities while undoing the damage of Jessica's father's rather ham-fisted experiments. But it'll take a little bit of time to process the information that Jessica and Octavia required for High Evolutionary to complete the treatment cycle. And turns out that Octavia Vermis' daughter Ophelia is quite likely a clone. But everything's ready. And all Spider-Man has to do is walk into enter the array. Once authorization is completed, he states it'll be relatively painless, probably. He gets everything started. However, Jessica notes that she doesn't trust this. And Octavia says that she definitely shouldn't because, well, now she has the Highlander access codes. Basically taking control of the clones of Miriam Drew. Who would then go after High Evolutionary, Jessica Drew, and of course, and also Ophelia. But Octavia then runs High Evolutionary through with her scepter. Jessica's about to actually try and kill him, but she gets knocked into the array by one of the clones of her mother. And it looks like maybe it worked. Meanwhile, the Vermis women are duking it out. And Ophelia states that everything her mother hates in her is because of Octavia. And Octavia seems to comfort her daughter, saying, I know. And then snaps her daughter's neck. And the issue ends with Octavia and Jessica standing over the unconscious body of the High Evolutionary, as well as the dead body of Ophelia Vermis, and a whole bunch of Miriam Drew clones. Which brings us to the last book for this video, Thor, number 12. Where we left off, Thor was trapped in between the other place that Donald Blake would go to when Thor would take his place on Earth. Donald Blake has basically taken Thor's place and sent all the Asgardians elsewhere, and is going after everyone who's ever had Thor powers. His most recent target being none other than Throg, the Frog of Thunder. The issue begins telling the origin of Throg. He was a mere mortal player of football with a tragic past, magically transformed into an amphibious demigod after a chance encounter with the mighty Thor. But Throg is actually giving Donald Blake quite the fight. But Donald Blake teleports away with Lockjaw promptly behind him. Eventually they end up in the Savage Land, and Donald tries to eat Throg, but basically Throg fights his way out of Donald's mouth with his hammer. And a really cool shot, which, yeah, I'll just go ahead and show you. He smacks Donald Blake right on the bridge of the nose. But they decide they need to figure. But Throg and Lockjaw decide they need to figure out what's going on. So they need to interrogate him, which is kind of beyond both their skill sets. They need to find him. They need to find a doctor. Back in New York, Jane is looking to call Tony Stark when first Throg and then Lockjaw fall from the sky. Throg telling her to run, and we discover that they took him to Doctor Strange, and well, Donald Blake has come to, and he detected Asgardian magic within Doctor Strange, and so yeah, back from when Loki usurped the title of Sorcerer Supreme. But Donald leaves, and Doctor Strange informs Jane that Donald is heading for the source of the Asgardian power that Doctor Strange has. The source being Yggdrasil. And so he's cutting into Yggdrasil, which the world tree, and it bleeds down into the other world that he used to live in, but to say the least, Thor is not happy. So Valkyrie summons forth her horse, Mr. Horse. Apparently, he and Throg do not get along. Or no, actually, him and Throg, Mr. Horse and Lockjaw don't get along. Elsewhere in the universe, shortly thereafter, Valkyrie arrives in a pub to recruit an ally in her quest. That ally being none other than the Allfather himself, Odin. It's time, after all, for Odin to clean up his mess. And that is where the issue ends. That's be it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal account in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying, live long and rock hard.